I was lying in a hospital bed, a tube in my arm, machines beeping like a countdown to something finals, when I realized no one was coming back for me. Not my husband. Not my sister. Not the people who had promised, with trembling voices and fake tears, that they would always be there. They had vanished the moment my kidneys failed. And what hurt more than the physical pain was discovering why. Because the truth was simple. They didn't think I would survive long enough to answer back. They were wrong. Before we go further, hi, I'm Shelby. If you believe that betrayal always comes from the people closest to us, hit like so this story reaches others who need to hear it. And subscribe if you enjoy stories about justice that actually feels earned. Also, tell me in the comments, where are you listening from tonight? Now, let me tell you how the worst time of my life turned into the moment that changed everything. Kidney failure doesn't happen all at once. It creeps in quietly, like a shadow slowly swallowing sunlight. At first it was just fatigue, the kind you brush off, the kind you blame on stress. I was 36, I had a stable job as a financial manager, a tidy home, a husband named Daniel who everyone called charming. He had a warm smile, easy laughter, the kind of presence that filled a room. And I trusted him completely. My younger sister Maya lived nearby. She visited often. She was loud, impulsive, dramatic, the opposite of me. We were close. Or at least I thought we were. The first real sign something was wrong came one afternoon at work. My hands began trembling so badly I couldn't hold my coffee mug. Then my vision blurred. A strange metallic taste filled my mouth. Next thing I knew, I was in an ER bed, staring at fluorescent lights that hummed like angry insects. A doctor stood beside me, his face tight with concern. "Shelby," he said gently, "your kidneys are functioning at less than 15%. The words didn't land at first. Then they hit like a hammer. "You're in advanced renal failure." Silence filled the room. Cold. Heavy. I remember whispering, "But I'm healthy, I don't even drink." He didn't look surprised. "It can happen quietly, sometimes genetics, sometimes autoimmune conditions, but you'll need dialysis immediately." Immediately. That word felt like a door slamming shut. Dialysis is not something you can imagine until you live it. 3 times a week. 4 hours each session. A machine doing the job your body can't. It drains you. Physically. Mentally. Emotionally. The first time I sat in that cold clinic chair, watching dark blood move through clear tubes, I felt something inside me break. Daniel sat beside me that day, holding my hand. "I've got you," he whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." I cried into his shoulder. I believed him. At first, everyone rallied around me. Maya brought homemade soup. Daniel took time off work. Friends sent flowers and messages. But illness has a way of exposing who people truly are. Because after a few weeks, the cracks started showing. Daniel began coming home later. He said work was stressful, that my treatments were emotionally exhausting. One night, as I sat at the kitchen table trying to eat bland, dialysis-friendly food, he sighed heavily. "You know," he said, "this has been really hard on me too." I looked up, confused. "I know," I said softly, "I'm sorry." He leaned back in his chair. "It's just, our whole life revolves around your illness now." The words strung. But I swallowed the hurt. Because I thought love meant understanding. Maya's visits became less frequent. She always had excuses. Work, friends, being too overwhelmed. One afternoon during dialysis I called her. She sounded distracted. "Hey, can you come by this weekend?" I asked. I miss you." She hesitated, then said something that made my chest tighten. "Shelby, it's just really hard seeing you like this." Hard seeing me like this. Like I was already fadding. The real turning point came 3 months later. That day my doctor called me into his office. He didn't sugarcoat it. You need a transplant, he said. Dialysis can only sustain you for so long. My stomach dropped. How long do I have? He paused, then answered quietly. Without a transplant, possibly a few years, maybe less. The room spun. A few years. That's what my life had been reduced to. A countdown. When I told Daniel that night, he sat very still. No comforting words. No reassurance. Just silence. Finally, he said, a transplant, that's expensive, right? I blinked. That's your first question. Well, we have to think realistically, he replied sharply. His tone felt cold. Foreign. Like he had suddenly become a stranger. A week later, I discovered something that made my hands shake. I came home early from a dialysis session. The house was unusually quiet. Daniel's office door was slightly open. Inside, I saw him talking on the phone. His voice was low. Urgent. I'm telling you, he said, she's not going to last long. The doctors basically confirmed it. My heart stopped. I froze, unable to breathe. Then he said the words that shattered everything. Once she's gone, the house and savings transfer automatically. We just need to wait it out. Wait it out. Like my death was an inconvenience, a schedule, a financial strategy. My knees nearly buckled. I stumbled back silently. My entire world collapsed in that moment. But the real betrayal, it came when I heard the voice on the other end of the call. Because Daniel had put it on speaker. And I recognized it instantly. Maya, my sister. She laughed softly. Just make sure she doesn't suspect anything, she said. The last thing we need is drama. My chest burned. My pulse roared in my ears. I pressed a hand over my mouth to stop a sob from escaping. They weren't just abandoning me. They were waiting for me to die. Together. That night I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Machines from dialysis still echoing in my mind. My body weak. My heart shattered. And one question repeating over and over in my head. How long had they been planning this? But an even darker realization slowly formed. If they thought I was dying, they would never expect me to fight back. And that would become my greatest weapon. I didn't confront them. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, I started planning. And what I discovered next would change everything. Because the betrayal ran far deeper than I ever imagined. And when I uncovered the truth, even I was stunned by how far they had gone. For the next few days, I moved through life like a ghost inside my own body. I smiled when Daniel spoke to me. I nodded when Maya sent her occasional fake "How are you feeling?" texts. But inside, something cold and sharp had taken root. It wasn't just anger. It was clarity. The kind that comes when you realize the people you trusted most were quietly waiting for your funeral. Dialysis already makes you feel like you're fadding. But after overhearing them, the exhaustion became heavier. Every session felt like I was sitting inside a ticking clock. The clinic smelled like antiseptic and plastic tubing. Machines hummed endlessly. Patients sat in rows, their faces pale, their eyes hollow. Before I had felt like one of them. Now I felt different. Because unlike most patients there, I wasn't just fighting illness. I was fighting betrayal. At night, I lay awake listening to Daniel move around the house. He was always on his phone, whispering, laughing softly. Once around midnight, I heard him step onto the balcony. I quietly followed and stood near the doorway. His voice floated through the darkness. Yeah, she's getting weaker. She barely eats now. A pause. Then a chuckle. I know, it's only a matter of time. My stomach twisted. He sounded almost relieved. Like my suffering was a countdown he couldn't wait to finish. The next morning he acted perfectly normal. "Did you sleep okay?" he asked, pouring coffee. His smile looked warm. But now I could see it clearly. It wasn't warmth. It was performance. I forced myself to nod. Yes. Inside I thought, "You have no idea what I know." Maya's behavior shifted too. She stopped asking about treatment. Instead, she started asking strange questions. "Have you updated your will? Do you have life insurance paperwork organized? Where are your account passwords stored?" At first, she pretended it was just practical. But I saw through it now. They weren't worried about losing me. They were preparing to inherit me. The worst moment came 2 weeks later. I returned home from dialysis feeling unusually weak. My head spun. My limbs felt like they were filled with sand. As I entered the kitchen, I heard Daniel and Maya talking. They didn't realize I was home. Daniel's voice was irritated. "This is taking longer than expected." Maya sighed. "Well, kidney failure isn't instant." Then she said something that made the room feel ice cold. "Did you ask her doctor about speeding things up?" My heart stopped. Daniel lowered his voice. "I tried. He said treatment is stabilizing her more than expected." A pause. Then Maya whispered, "That's a problem." My knees nearly gave out. Speeding things up. What did that mean? Were they? No. I couldn't let my mind go there. But the fear planted itself deep inside me. From that day onward, I stopped trusting anything they gave me. I cooked my own meals. I drank only sealed water bottles. I kept my medications locked. Because the people who should have protected me had become the biggest threat to my survival. Emotionally, those weeks were torture. I couldn't confront them. Not yet. Because I needed proof. And more importantly, I needed a plan. There were nights I broke down silently in the bathroom, pressing my fist against my mouth so no one would hear me sob. I wasn't just grieving my health anymore. I was grieving the illusion of love, the illusion of family, the illusion that I had ever truly been safe. But something else began to grow inside me, something stronger than grief, a quiet, stubborn determination. If they thought I was weak, if they thought I was fading, then I would let them believe it. Because the more confident they became, the less careful they would be. And that's when they would make mistakes. My first opportunity came unexpectedly. One afternoon, while Daniel was showering, his phone buzzed on the table. Normally, I would never invade someone's privacy. But that day, I picked it up. The message preview froze my blood. It was from Maya. She asked about her accounts today. "Be careful." My hands trembled as I unlocked the phone. I knew his passcode. He'd used the same one for years. Our anniversary date. How ironic. What I found inside changed everything. There were hundreds of messages between them. Months' worth. Some dated back even before my diagnosis. And they were worse than anything I imagined. One message read, "Maya, once she's gone, we can finally be together openly." "Daniel, I know I've waited long enough." My vision blurred. "Together." My chest tightened. I kept scrolling. Then I saw photos. My heart dropped. They were selfies. Daniel and Maya in a hotel room. Smiling. Intimate. My stomach twisted violently. The betrayal wasn't just financial. It wasn't just emotional. They had been having an affair. Behind my back. For who knows how long. I collapsed into a chair, shaking. Everything suddenly made sense. His emotional distance, her strange behavior, their shared impatience. They weren't just waiting for me to die. They were planning a life together after I was gone, using my illness as their exit strategy. But the worst message of all was from 2 weeks earlier. Maya had written, "If she gets a transplant, this could drag on for years. That would ruin everything." Daniel replied, "She won't get one, the wait list is too long." Then he added something that made my blood run cold. "And even if she does, I know how to handle it." I stared at that message for a long time. My hands went numb. What did he mean by that? How to handle it? That was the moment my grief finally transformed into something else. Something sharper, colder, more focused. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a target. And if I didn't act carefully, I might not survive long enough to fight back. That night I made a decision. I would stop being passive. I would stop waiting. And most importantly, I would start documenting everything. Because when the time came, I wouldn't just expose them. I would destroy the illusion they had built. Completely. Publicly. Irreversibly. But before I could do any of that, something unexpected happened. Something that changed the entire game. 3 weeks later, during a routine hospital visit, my doctor walked into the room with an expression I had never seen before. Hope. Real hope. He sat down and said 5 words that made my heart slam against my ribs. "Shelby, we found a match." And in that moment, I realized something powerful. I wasn't dying. Which meant their entire plan was about to collapse. And they had no idea what was coming. "Shelby, we found a match." Those 5 words echoed in my ears long after my doctor left the room. For months, every conversation about my future had been filled with uncertainty, timelines, probabilities. But this was different. This was concrete. Real. A chance to live. I sat there gripping the hospital bed sheet, my fingers trembling. Not from fear this time. From something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope. But the next thought that followed was darker. Sharp. Almost electric. If I survived, Daniel and Maya's entire plan would fall apart. And for the first time, I realized something clearly. They weren't just waiting for me to die. They were depending on it. And now, that expectation was about to become their biggest vulnerability. The transplant process moved quickly. There were tests, endless blood work, psychological evaluations, long conversations about risks. The hospital corridors became familiar, their sterile smell etched into my senses. But unlike before, I walked those halls with a secret. I didn't tell Daniel. I didn't tell Maya. Not yet. Because I wanted something first. Time. Time to prepare. Time to protect myself. Time to make sure that when the truth came out, it would hit them like a thunderclap. That night when I got home, Daniel greeted me with his usual fake warmth. "How was your appointment?" he asked. I watched his face carefully. The slight impatience behind his smile. The subtle tension in his jaw. The way his eyes scanned me like he was trying to measure how much longer I had left. "It was routine," I said calmly. He nodded, almost relieved. "Good." Inside I thought, enjoy your confidence while it lasts. The first step in my plan wasn't revenge. It was survival. Because the more I thought about Maya's words, speeding things up, the more I realized something terrifying. I could not trust them with my health. Not even a little. So I began quietly taking precautions. I stored all medications in a locked case. I kept copies of my medical records in a secure online folder. I spoke privately with my doctor about my home environment. Without revealing everything, I told him I felt unsafe. He listened carefully and arranged something unexpected. After my transplant, he said, I could stay in a monitored recovery facility instead of returning home immediately. That one decision would later save me from something I never saw coming. Meanwhile, I began documenting everything. I saved screenshots of messages, recorded phone conversations when possible, backed up files in multiple locations. Every piece of evidence, every whisper, every lie. Because I wasn't just planning to confront them, I was preparing to expose them completely. But the deeper I dug, the more disturbing the truth became. One evening, while going through Daniel's financial files, I found something that made my stomach twist. He had taken out a large life insurance policy in my name. Just 6 months before my diagnosis, I stared at the paperwork, my heart pounding. The policy amount was enormous, enough to erase all his debts, enough to fund a comfortable new life with Maya. And that wasn't all. There were documents showing he had quietly moved money from our joint accounts into separate investments. Hidden accounts, ones he thought I didn't know existed. But he had forgotten one thing. I was a financial manager. Numbers were my language. And now, they were telling me everything. The realization hit me like a cold wave. This wasn't just opportunistic betrayal. It had been planned. Carefully. Methodically. Long before my illness became severe. And suddenly, a chilling question formed in my mind. Had they only waited for my illness? Or had they been hopping for it? For several nights I couldn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying every memory from the past 2 years. Moments that once seemed harmless now felt sinister. Daniel pushing me to skip routine checkups. Maya dismissing early symptoms. Their oddly calm reactions when I was diagnosed. Each memory now looked different. Darker, like pieces of a puzzle finally snapping into place. But there was no time to drown in paranoia. Because the transplant date arrived faster than expected. It was scheduled for early spring. The morning I left for the hospital, Daniel hugged me tightly. Too tightly. You'll be okay, he said softly. But his voice lacked warmth. It sounded strained. Almost anxious. Like he was afraid of something. And for a brief moment, I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before. Fear. Not fear for me. Fear of losing control. The surgery lasted hours. I remember the cold operating room. The bright surgical lights. The anesthesiologist's calm voice counting down. Then darkness. When I woke up, everything felt heavy. My body ached. But beneath the pain, there was something incredible. A strange, steady warmth in my side. A rhythm. Life returning. The doctor smiled when he saw my eyes open. It went perfectly, he said. You have a strong new kidney. Tears slid down my temples. For the first time in months, I felt like I might actually have a future. And that's when the next phase of my plan truly began. Because I chose not to go home. I moved into the recovery facility. A secure place. Monitored. Safe. Daniel didn't like that decision. I could hear it in his voice during phone calls. You should be recovering here, he insisted. I can take care of you. But I refused. Calmly. Firmly. And that was when his tone changed for the first time. He sounded nervous. Uncertain. Like the ground beneath him was starting to crack. Over the following weeks I watched from a distance. And the cracks widened. Because without access to me, without control, Daniel and Maya began to panic. Their messages grew more frantic, more careless, more revealing. One night I listened to a recorded call where Maya whispered, "What if she survives long term?" Daniel's reply was cold. "Then we'll deal with it another way." That was the moment I knew. I couldn't just confront them privately, because people capable of thinking like that would never truly stop. They needed consequences, real ones. So I finalized my plan. A plan that would destroy their image, expose their betrayal, and ensure they could never hurt me again. But most importantly, it would happen in a way they would never expect. Publicly, in a setting where they believed they were about to celebrate their victory. Instead, they would face their downfall, and their expressions in that moment would become something I would never forget, because my reply to their betrayal was about to stun them in a way they never saw coming. Recovery after a kidney transplant is strange. Physically, you feel fragile. Every movement reminds you your body has been opened, rearranged, stitched back together. But emotionally, I felt stronger than I had in years. Because for the first time since my diagnosis, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was in control. And Daniel and Maya had no idea how close they were to losing everything. During my weeks at the recovery facility, I watched them from a distance. Not physically. Through the evidence I had gathered. Phone recordings, screenshots, financial documents, every lie they had ever whispered behind my back. It felt surreal sometimes, like I was studying strangers, because the people I once loved now looked like nothing more than calculated opportunists. Their behavior grew increasingly desperate. Daniel called me constantly. At first his voice sounded overly sweet. "How are you feeling today? I miss you. The house feels empty without you." But beneath the words I could hear the strain. He wasn't worried about me. He was worried about losing access to what he thought would soon belong to him. Maya stopped pretending entirely. Her calls were short, cold, transactional. She asked about paperwork, insurance updates, legal documents, and every time I responded the same way. Soft voice, weak tone. "I'm still very tired, we can discuss later." I let them believe I was fragile, dependent, still unaware. Because nothing blinds people more than confidence in their own deception. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. 3 months after my transplant, I announced I was ready to come home. The reaction was immediate. Daniel sounded almost giddy. "That's amazing," he said quickly. "We should celebrate." Maya insisted on organizing a family gathering. She framed it as a welcome-back event. But I knew the truth. They wanted to assess me, to see if I was still weak, still vulnerable, still someone they could control. And I decided to give them exactly what they expected. At least at first. The day of the gathering arrived. The house looked spotless. Decorations filled the living room. There were flowers, balloons, food arranged neatly on the table. To anyone else, it looked like a warm family celebration. To me, it felt like stepping into a stage set, where everyone was playing a role. When I walked in, Daniel rushed to hug me. His arms tightened around me. Too tight. Like he was testing whether I still felt fragile. "You look better," he said, almost surprised. Maya smiled brightly. "I'm so happy you're home." Her voice sounded sweet. But her eyes were calculating, measuring, searching. For the first hour, everything felt normal. Small talk, laughter, concerned questions about my health. They performed their roles perfectly. But beneath it all, I could sense their unease. because I wasn't acting the way they expected. I wasn't weak. I wasn't emotional. I was calm. Very calm. And that made them nervous. Then I stood up, gently tapped a glass to get everyone's attention. Before we continue, I said softly, I want to say something. The room fell silent. Daniel smiled politely. Maya crossed her arms, curious. Neither of them realized. This was the moment their entire world was about to collapse. I took a slow breath and began. You both know how much I relied on you when I got sick. I let my voice tremble slightly. I trusted you completely. Daniel nodded solemnly. Maya placed a hand over her chest. Perfect performances. Until I said the next sentence. And that's why it hurt so much when I discovered the truth. Their expressions froze instantly. Like masks cracking. I reached into my bag, pulled out a small remote, and pressed a button. Behind me the TV screen lit up, and the first image appeared. A screenshot. Daniel and Maya's messages. The words glowing clearly. Once she's gone, we can finally be together. The room went dead silent. You could hear breathing. Nothing else. Daniel's face drained of color. Maya's mouth opened slightly. But no sound came out. I didn't stop. More screenshots appeared. Photos of them together. Financial records. Life insurance policies. Audio recordings began playing through the speakers. Their voices filled the room. Clear. Undeniable. Cold. Speeding things up would help. It's only a matter of time. We just need to wait it out. Each sentence landed like a hammer. Their own words. Their own betrayal. Echoing back at them. Maya finally found her voice. Shelby, this isn't what it looks like. Her tone was desperate. Panicked. But I interrupted calmly. No, I said. It's exactly what it looks like. Daniel stepped forward. His face pale, his voice shaking. You don't understand. I looked directly into his eyes and spoke the words that stunned them both. Oh, I understand perfectly. I paused, let silence stretch, then delivered the final blow. I also understand that none of this matters anymore, because you won't get a single thing from me. I pulled out another document. A legal notice. I updated everything months ago, I said calmly. The house, the accounts, the insurance. I held his gaze. You're no longer beneficiaries of anything. Daniel staggered back slightly. Like the air had been knocked out of him. Maya whispered, you can't do that. But her voice sounded hollow. Because she already knew. They had lost. Completely. I took one final breath and said the line that would stay with them forever. You disappeared when I needed you most. My voice was steady. Cold. But my reply, I let the silence settle, was making sure you disappear from my life permanently. No shouting followed. No dramatic fight. Just silence. Heavy. Crushing. Because they knew there was nothing left to say. Nothing left to defend. Nothing left to salvage. In the weeks that followed, the fallout spread quickly. Friends distanced themselves from Daniel. Family members cut ties with Maya. Their reputation shattered. The illusion they had carefully maintained was gone. Forever. As for me, recovery continued. Slowly, but steadily. And for the first time in years, my life felt peaceful. Not because I had taken revenge, but because I had reclaimed something more important. My dignity, my control, my future. Sometimes late at night, I still think about those months in the hospital. The loneliness, the fear, the betrayal, and I realize something important. Illness didn't destroy my life. It revealed who deserved to be in it, and who never did. If you've ever been abandoned when you needed someone most, remember this. The greatest reply isn't anger. It isn't revenge. It's survival. It's rebuilding. It's living so fully that the people who doubted you become nothing more than distant shadows in your past. Before you go, if this story moved you, don't forget to like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to cut someone out of your life to protect your peace? Because sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply refusing to let betrayal define your ending.